The moment my wife, Isabel, smirked across the polished mahogany conference table, I knew. The whispers, the stolen glances between board members, the closed-door meetings. It had all been leading to this moment. I had seen it coming for months, yet the betrayal still hit like a gut punch. The board has voted. You're out, Isabel announced smoothly, leaning back with the confidence of a queen who had just claimed her throne. Beside her, Ryan, my former protege, the man I had mentored, sat smugly in what he thought was now his seat. I didn't react. No outburst. No desperation. Just a slow, measured smile as I flipped open my leather portfolio. Check page 391. The tension in the room thickened. Isabel hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but quickly regained her composure. What's on page 391? The succession clause, I said, my voice calm and deliberate. It requires any incoming CEO to have at least 10 years of executive leadership experience in a technology firm. I turned my gaze to Ryan, watching the color drain from his face. Ryan, how long have you been in senior management? He stiffened. 3 years. Silence. Matthew, my chief legal counsel, and one of the few still loyal to me, cleared his throat. That clause is in the company's founding documents. Amending it requires a unanimous shareholder vote. I leaned back in my chair. And as the majority shareholder, I won't be voting for that change. A ripple of panic spread through the room. Ryan shifted in his chair, suddenly unsure. Isabel's confidence cracked, but she masked it with anger. We'll fight this, she snapped. You're welcome to try, I replied, steepling my fingers. But this clause isn't a technicality. It's ironclad. Matthew slid a folder across the table. Perhaps you'd also like to explain why over $300,000 was funneled through a private consulting firm registered under Ryan's name? Ryan paled. Isabel's expression darkened. You see, I continued, my voice lower now, I've been patient. Watching. Waiting. And now I have all the proof I need. Fraud. Embezzlement. Conspiracy. The words hung heavy in the air. I let them sink in before turning to the rest of the board. For those misled into voting against me, there's room for redemption. But for those who orchestrated this coup, there will be consequences. 3 board members immediately resigned. The others sat frozen, fear etched across their faces. Isabel seethed. This isn't over. I smiled. No, Isabel. It's just beginning. She stormed out, Ryan scrambling after her. The remaining board members avoided my gaze, shame pressing down on them like a weight. I exhaled slowly and pressed my palms against the table. Now, I said, my voice steady, let's discuss why a special board meeting was called without notifying the CEO. An hour later, 3 more resignations sat on my desk. I accepted them without a word as Matthew set their replacements in motion. Back in my office, he handed me a coffee. How long have you known? 3 weeks, he admitted. Isabel asked me to review succession procedures. She didn't realize I helped write them. Of course she hadn't. She had always underestimated me. My phone buzzed. A message from Isabel. You may have won this round, but don't get too comfortable. There's more than one way to take control of a company. I exhaled slowly and handed the phone to Matthew. Start documenting everything. This wasn't over. It was war. The next move was mine. I watched as resignation after resignation piled up, each one a quiet admission of defeat. Those who remained had no choice but to fall in line. By the time I returned to my office, Matthew was already replacing the defectors, ensuring the company's stability. I sank into my chair, finally allowing myself a moment to process it all. My own wife had staged a coup against me. Not just a betrayal of our marriage, but of everything I had built. And she had done it with another man at her side, as if I were disposable. Matthew knocked, placing another coffee on my desk. Thought you might need this. I nodded, taking a slow sip. How bad? The board purge stabilizes things, he said. But Isabel is already retaliating. He slid his phone across the desk. An email from her to the entire company. Effective immediately, we are entering a new era of leadership. Transparency, progress, and bold decision-making will be at the forefront. We will not be held back by outdated leadership models. I smirked, implying I'm the problem. Classic. Matthew had already taken countermeasures, canceling her meetings, revoking her access. Should we be worried? He asked. I exhaled, shaking my head. Not for the company. But things are about to get messy. That night, 2 texts from Isabel. You're pathetic. Followed by, if you think this is over, you're dead wrong. I ignored the messages. Let her rage in the dark. But then my father called. By the time I arrived at my parents' house, I knew Isabel had gotten to them first. My mother looked anxious, wringing her hands. My father's expression was unreadable, his gaze steady, assessing. She says you blindsided her, he stated. I let out a cold laugh. Did she leave out the part where she orchestrated an illegal coup? My mother flinched. She just wants to help. No, I corrected. She wants power. Isabel had played the victim well, weaving her narrative with precision, planting seeds of doubt in their minds. But she had underestimated one thing. I didn't just play defense. I played to win. That night, I sent a single email to Matthew. I want every expense report from Isabel's department. Every failed project. Every reckless decision. Have the evidence on my desk by morning. The tension in the office was suffocating the next day. Employees whispered in hushed tones, avoiding eye contact. Isabel had been busy spinning her own version of events, but the truth was a force she couldn't contain. Matthew was already in my office, his laptop open, a thick folder placed between us. His expression was grim. She wasn't just orchestrating a coup, he said. She was stealing. I exhaled slowly. How much? Over $300,000, he said. Funneled through Ryan's consulting firm. I had expected betrayal. But fraud. Maria, my assistant, entered with a tablet. Another email from Isabel. I took it from her, scanning the message. More corporate jargon about transparency and leadership moving forward. She's doing damage control, I muttered. She's desperate, Matthew corrected. I tapped the folder between us. Time to show everyone exactly who they're dealing with. By noon, the truth was everywhere. The fraudulent transactions, the secret consulting firm, Isabel's direct involvement. It all spread like wildfire. Investors, employees, clients. Every single person who had once believed in her carefully crafted persona now saw her for what she really was. The narrative she had so meticulously built crumbled in an instant. Then, at 3:47 p.m., security called. Isabel was in the building. She was waiting in the executive lounge, fury burning in her eyes. This is a mistake, Lucas, she said as soon as I stepped inside. I crossed my arms. Which part? The coup or the fraud? She flinched but quickly masked it with defiance. You don't understand. The company is stagnating. We should have gone public. Expanded faster. And Ryan was the answer? I scoffed. He was embezzling, Isabel. Her jaw clenched. You'll regret this. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a document, handing it to her without a word. She took it, her fingers tightening around the paper as she read. Her face paled. What is this? Your termination notice. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't over. I smiled. Oh, Isabel. It's over the moment I say it is. By the end of the day, she was erased from the company. Her access revoked, her name removed from every internal document. But I knew she wouldn't stop. At 11:23 p.m., my phone buzzed one last time. You may have won this round, but I'm not finished. I exhaled slowly, then typed my response. 3 words. Yes. You. Are. Then I blocked her number. The war was over. But power struggles were never confined to one battlefield. In the gleaming boardroom of another empire, tension hung thick in the air. The polished mahogany table, reflecting the recessed lights above, separated the titans of industry. Men and women who thrived on power plays, who lived for corporate warfare. Nathan Caldwell adjusted his tie, his piercing gaze sweeping across the room. We're at a crossroads. The merger will either cement our legacy or destroy everything we've built. Across from him, Evelyn Mercer leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. And what assurances do we have that your firm won't gut our infrastructure the moment the ink dries? A smirk tugged at Nathan's lips. Trust, Evelyn. A rare commodity in this business. Trust is earned, she countered, folding her arms. And so far, all I see are numbers on a page. Richard Langley, the CFO, cleared his throat. We've run projections. Synergies between our companies will drive revenue up by 15% in the first quarter alone. Evelyn shook her head. You talk in numbers, but you forget the people. Our workforce isn't a statistic. Layoffs, restructuring. What's your plan for them? A beat of silence. Nathan steepled his fingers. Efficiency requires difficult decisions. But we're not here to make enemies, Evelyn. We're here to create an empire. Her eyes narrowed. Empires are built on loyalty, Nathan. Not just numbers. You want my vote? Show me a plan that values more than just the bottom line. Nathan exhaled slowly, his smirk fading. Perhaps it's time for a private discussion. Just you and me. Evelyn considered him for a long moment before standing. Let's talk. As they exited the boardroom, the executives left behind exchanged glances. Deals were made in conference rooms, but true power? True power was wielded behind closed doors.